Hey guys, so today I'm finally getting to this. I would say this is a kitchen desk or a kitchen office desk thing. Not exactly sure what you call it, but I definitely wanted to give this thing a makeover. It was supposed to be done 4 years ago when I did the other kitchen countertops, but I finally got around to it. And let's blame me being 7 months pregnant and nesting, and all of a sudden I have the energy to do it. Okay, but this is the after, and I'm very, very happy with the results. And yes, it is epoxy, and yes, I'm very happy with my epoxy countertops. Um, as far as discoloration, your main culprit in discoloration will be the products that you use to clean epoxy countertops. Don't go doing epoxy countertops if you do not plan to take care of them properly, okay? That does not mean use bleach on them if they are white, because that will definitely turn them yellow. And the reason why I know this is because my family used bleach on my kitchen countertops, and I'll show you the difference in another video or in this video, okay? But anyways, that's the before and this is the after, and this is what we'll need. So I'll link everything down below. I got this mixing attachment from Walmart. I put it on a drill. If you don't have that, you can use a paint stick. Just make sure you're really whipping the epoxy correctly and mixing it correctly. I'm using a container from the dollar store and it has measurements on it. I just went over it with a Sharpie. The brushes I'm using are also from a dollar store. From the dollar store, they come in a 3-pack. Just take off any loose fibers on them. The colors I'm using for spray paint, I'll list down below in the description box. And you need a lot of gloves, okay? You're also going to need a couple of notch trowels, and this kind of depends on how thick you want your epoxy to be. And you're going to need some cabinet door and trim enamel, not latex paint, and something to use as a drop cloth. I just used a cheap shower curtain and a little spatula type of thing to scrape off old caulk, and some painter's tape. That was not painter's tape, that was electrical tape. And definitely a heat gun. If you don't have a heat gun, you can use a clean blow dryer on the highest setting with the concentration, attachment on it. But I definitely suggest getting a cheap heat gun, okay? The electrical tape, it worked for what I needed. I just needed to get it done because that's just how my 7-month pregnancy brain works. All right, you guys, so we're gonna take this spatula tool and scrape off the old caulk that was still left on the countertop. It used to have a granite backsplash here on the wall that I removed years ago. There is belly. And scrape that off, and then you're gonna go in with a very coarse heavy grit piece of sandpaper and take as much shine off of the countertop as you can. It looks shiny because I just sprayed it with rubbing alcohol to remove dust. And then you're gonna go in with your painter's tape to tape off your countertop from your wall to protect it from the epoxy. And then my shower curtains, I cut them in half and I'm taping it underneath the countertop. So right underneath the granite, that's where I'm taping it. I used some of this electrical tape to do that. It worked okay, but then I went in with regular tape, like the type of tape you use to wrap presents, and that worked a little bit better. At this point, I still didn't have painter's tape, and then I finally gave up and went and bought me some painter's tape eventually. But yeah, when you're in the nesting phase of pregnancy, there's just things you want to do and you just want to get it done right now. And if you don't get it done right now, you're going to keep thinking about it and it's going to stress you out. And we don't need stress during pregnancy, okay? And for those of you who are going to ask, where's my husband? He's out making money, okay? Don't ask me silly questions. All right, so I put a couple of cans of paint under the plastic to kind of create a trench because I don't want the epoxy to leak down the plastic and then onto the floor. So creating the trench kind of makes it puddle in that area. And then I wipe down the countertop one more time to remove any dust that may be on it. and then I go in with my cabinet and trim enamel paint. I am not priming the countertop because I already sanded it. If you don't sand it, then you can prime it. If you decide to use latex paint, which I don't recommend using, you definitely need to sand and prime at the same time, okay? This is the paint I prefer to use. This is the white I prefer to use. The Behr Company has the best white paint in my opinion. It's the brightest white paint I've ever used, and I've used a few, and it looks awesome. I do let the coats dry in between. I did 2 coats, okay? So first coat, let that dry, and then I came in with a second coat. It takes about 45 minutes for each coat to dry, depending on the temperature in your house. As far as your epoxy, please follow the instructions that come with your epoxy. It's basically a 1-to-1 ratio, so half and half. The container I'm using is from Dollar Tree. I marked off the measurements on there perfectly with a Sharpie so I could see them. By the way, the amount I've mixed half and half is 32 ounces, so 16 ounces of A and B. And to tint the epoxy, I'm using the same paint, just a little bit of it, to tint my epoxy and make it white, okay? I'm going for a opaque white, so nothing see-through, okay? And I'm just adding a little bit at a time. I just dipped my brush in there and let a couple of streams go into the container, mixed it, checked it out. It looked a little too transparent to me, so I just added a bit more in there. And this, again, is enamel trim cabinet door paint, okay? This is not latex paint. I would not recommend mixing latex paint in here. You can probably use white spray paint, but I don't like the way white spray paint looks, okay? I only like the colored spray paint. So I mix that up using my mixer and my drill. If you don't have that, definitely use a paint stick. You're just gonna have to really mix it really, really well. All right, so here I'm taping. I finally got my painter's tape and I needed it. I'm taping the counter off like this. So I'm basically making like a barrier so that the epoxy doesn't fall off the countertop right away, because I want the epoxy to set about halfway, not even halfway, 1/4 of the way before I take this paint off, the tape off, and you'll see why. So now I'm gonna pour my first coat of epoxy, which is basically the white epoxy that we just made, all 32 ounces of it. You can do it all at once, but I did have first spread it to see how that looks, and then I decided to add the rest. And as you guys could see, I'm using my notch trowel to spread it this time. I believe last time I used foam rollers, and this time I just wanted to do something different. The foam rollers were great, but I wanted a thicker epoxy, a thicker layer of epoxy, okay? So as you can see, I'm putting the rest of the epoxy on here, and then you could turn the cup or the container upside down and let the rest of it come out onto the countertop. Just put it in a corner where there's no epoxy yet, okay? Just kind of prop it up on something. You see I had my paint roller there, so I did try with it and I wasn't really feeling it, so I went in with my notch trowel. And don't worry about the lines, they will level out. This is self-leveling epoxy. It does not have a smell, because I know somebody's gonna comment that you're pregnant, you should be this, you should be that, you should blah, 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 blah. I know. Remember, we still have to go outside and breathing all the toxic everything that's out there in the world. But I wouldn't be doing something dangerous to harm my baby, okay? So this epoxy does not have any of those harsh smells. It doesn't smell like poison or anything. It smells like nothing, okay? So I'm using the notch trowel to spread this out evenly, making sure I get all the way to the edges of the countertop, especially in the back, and double checking, making sure there's no fish eye. Basically that it's like an area that kind of, it develops like a little hole puddle type of thing. So just go back over it and make sure all those areas are covered, and this will level out on its own. Do not worry about the lines, it will go away. All right, for my colors, I'm going to use a bit of the white epoxy. I left some behind in my cup, by the way. I left a little bit behind in my cup. You don't need much, about 1/4 cup each, okay? Or maybe 1/3 cup. And I'm using the shade Stone Gray from this spray paint. So this is going to be my first color. This is going to be like my shadow for my veins, my marble veins. This is what I did the first time when I did this video, and that part of that video, the clip dropped and I wasn't able to add it into that video, even though a lot of you didn't mind, or some of you were very rude about it. There's nothing I could do about a dropped clip, okay? But the first shade I'm using is stone gray. The second shade I'm using is slate. So I'm using a nice lighter gray and a darker gray. So these two colors together are going to give me more of a natural looking marble-ish, marble look, okay? Because that's what I'm going for. I don't want one color, because if you've ever looked at marble, it has different shades of gray in it. And I don't mean like undertone, I mean like from light to dark. There's light shades, dark shades, all mixed in between. And it really doesn't matter the slab. They all have different shades of gray in there. So that's what I'm trying to mimic. So using my dollar store brush, the largest one that comes in the pack of 3, I'm going to start drizzling, in lines. It doesn't have to be perfect. The lightest shade, again, this is stone gray. I'm going to drizzle where I want my veins to go. If you are not really good at drawing, you're not really good at, artistic things, I suggest you get a reference picture of a piece of marble that you can find on Google Images or in the hardware store. You could get a little sample and just look at that and kind of follow that if that's what you like. So, look at different slabs of marble, take pictures of them, find some images on Google. And if you find a piece of marble that you like, you do not have to use the colors I'm using. Find similar spray paint colors and just, use that as your guide, as your inspiration for your countertop, okay? So as you guys could see, it's just a very small amount of this gray shade that I'm adding, and I'm pretty much doing it the same exact way I did it when I first did my countertops almost 5 years ago. And you see it's not a straight line, it's kind of just random, because real marble is random. It is stone. It has been formed by pressure and years of movement and all of that. So none of the lines will be perfectly straight. Once I have my first lines down, I like to call them like my shadow lines or whatever. That's what I call them, or my guides. I'm going to blend that out using slight tapping motions with my brush. Make sure before you use your brush, you pull on it, flick it a little bit, and make sure all the loose fibers come off of it, because you definitely don't want random strands of brush fiber to fall in the epoxy. It's easy to remove. Just make sure you use a shish kebab stick, or you could use your glove. But definitely, prep the brushes before you use them so you don't have to deal with that, okay? So yeah, as you guys could see, light tapping motions, and you see my little baby in the back. That is the baby from my first video that I had to stop in the middle of doing my countertops to go breastfeed. She's now 5 years old. All right, so she's watching me do this, not realizing she was, here for the beginning of the first one in the kitchen. But she really, was like making me feel good. She's like, "It looks really good, Mom." So yeah, she was just curious about the process and stuff like that. All right, did you see that one piece of strand that came off with the brush? So please be careful with that. Prep them. Definitely double check your countertops. Make sure nothing is there. No animal hair, no fibers, no nothing, okay? Now we're going to go in with our darker shade, the slate. So we're going to go over, but not perfectly over. So slightly off of where we put the lightest shade. Some of it could be centered, that's fine, but some of it could be on the side, some of it could be over it. You don't want it too perfect, because if it's too perfect, it's going to look a little fake, okay? All right, we wanted this to look as realistic as possible. And I'm sorry if I speak a little bit funny. I wasn't born in America, okay? But yeah, once you have your dark shade down, and by the way, I'm using the same brush that I use for the light shade. I'm not using another brush. It's the same brush. I'm going to start tapping it just like I tapped the light shade. So light tapping. And right now it doesn't look like much. To some people, they were like, "Oh my God, this looks amazing right now." No, it doesn't. Not to me. There's a much more that we're going to be doing to really make this blend in, to smooth it out, to just make it look as buttery soft as we can have it look. Okay, these colors look a bit too harsh to me, so we're gonna soften this up. The brush helps blend, but then I'll show you what I use to help it blend further. Okay, by the way, you have 45 minutes of work time. Once you pour your white, and you're not waiting for the white to dry, because in my last video people asked me if I waited for the white to dry. No, you pour your white base. So after you paint completely white, you let that paint dry completely, then you pour your white base, and then you pour your veins right away. After you pour your white veins, your white base, after you pour your white base and you spread that out perfectly, you're gonna go in with your colors and pour those and design your countertop to your liking. All right, we have 45 minutes to do this, so that's more than enough time for you to blend out colors, to get everything just right the way you want it, and to, get all the bubbles out. There is bubbles while using epoxy. Not all epoxy has bubbles. Even the epoxy that says it's bubble free has bubbles. Okay, if you're using an attachment to mix it, like the drill attachment, it's gonna have bubbles. Okay, it's gonna have bubbles whether you like it or not. All right, so again, we're gonna paint the countertop. You prep it, sand it, paint it. 2 layers of paint, enamel paint. Let it dry. If you don't want to buy enamel paint, use latex, but then you're going to have to sand, prime it with a bonding primer, then paint it with the latex paint. And then let that first layer dry, then the second layer dry. You have to let your bond dry, your first layer dry, and your second layer of paint dry. Okay? All right? Okay. Then you're going to put your white base. You're going to pour that, spread that, and then you're going to pour your veins. This is still when the epoxy is wet. And I'm repeating this again because there's probably going to be a comment asking me if I let the white dry before putting on my veins. The white is not dry, okay? Everything is wet. We pour the white, we pour the veins, we have 45 minutes to blend and do everything we need to do, all right? So I hope I hope you understand that, okay? All right, I just want you to do this right, and I want you to be happy with your results, okay? And as far as cleaning goes, in the beginning of the video, I said, if you're going to do epoxy countertops, make sure you are prepared to take care of them and to clean them properly. You cannot use super heavy acidic cleaners. Cleaners that have colors in them, like orangey colors, yellow colors, green colors, red colors, because all of those are fake colors and they will stain your countertops. Just use rubbing alcohol with a little bit of Dawn dish soap, mix with some water in a spray bottle. That's all you need, okay? I use 92% alcohol. Now, for all the bubbles, if you look closely, you can see the bubbles popping, and then they kind of like blend out on their own. So using my heat gun, I'm going to go over this entire countertop multiple times, at least 3 to 4 times, to make sure I get all of the bubbles, because I don't want there to be any bubbles trapped in there. It's gonna ruin the look of my design. So now for the blending, remember I said that the colors were too harsh? We're going to use the heat gun or a very clean blow dryer with the concentration attachment on it, and we're going to blend out our colors. Remember how harsh these colors looked when we first put them on? Right now we're blending them out. So if you look closely, you see how it's like blurring it, it's blurring it, it's blending it out. That's what we want, okay? We want it to look like that. We don't want it to be too sharp, unless that's what you like. If you like sharp lines, that's perfectly fine. This countertop design, I was very happy with it at first. Like, I'm really happy with it. But that one that one corner on the bottom right had a little bit too much gray for my liking. So what I did was mix 16 ounces of epoxy, so 8 ounces of A and 8 ounces of B. And I also tinted that white with a little bit of the enamel paint and used it on the bottom right to get rid of that gray, because it was too gray for me. You see how concentrated that gray is there? I needed to break that up. It was bothering me. It didn't look natural. It looked out of place. All right. So as you guys could see, the heat gun is doing the job, blending out the harsh lines, giving us more of a natural look. And you see how the light shade of gray and the dark shade of gray play well together. The light shade of gray actually has like a slight warm tone to it, and the dark shade is more on the cooler side, but you can use any colors you like. Now, at this point, once we're done with making our lines, we're going to wait. Before I pull this tape, I actually waited an hour and a half to 2 hours before pulling this tape. So do not pull this tape once you're done with your lines, like your veins, I mean. All right, so after making my veins and waiting an hour and a half to 2 hours, I pulled the tape, and this is where the epoxy that puddled on the edges is going to start falling over the edge of the countertop. This is going to give us a nice thick layer over the sides so that this doesn't chip or crack from, things being banged into it. This is a kitchen. I am constantly cooking in my kitchen. I'm always in my kitchen. As you guys could see, there is tape underneath the countertop now. You see that? I added that before I pulled the tape, and the reason I added this was so that the epoxy kind of puddles a little bit on the edge right there. Okay, and I'm using one of the brushes to blend out what is dripping off of the countertop, and I'm also using the heat gun to help remove any bubbles and to help smooth this out. So don't worry if it looks like a drip cake. Use your brush and blend this out, and use your heat gun or blow dryer to help blend this out and smooth it out. Okay, it ended up taking me a little longer to do this project because I am pregnant and I'm not trying to do everything in one day. So the first part of me putting the white base down and the veins down, I did in one day, and then the clear coat I did the next day. So after putting down your veins and after blending out the edges, the bottom part of the tape, I'm gonna remove that about an hour and a half. It depends on the temperature in your house, and the temperature in your house is very important when doing epoxy. You want it to be between 68 to 75, 78 degrees, nothing too high. Okay, but yeah, I pulled the tape once it was nice and sticky, and then I use my spatula to remove drips that will be dripping for the next 2 hours. So make sure this is something you do while you are home and you can keep an eye on it. All right, so I let this dry overnight. So you see I'm able to put tools on it, and like I said, I'm pacing myself. I'm not trying to do all of this at once. If I wasn't pregnant, this all would have been done in one day, but this is the next day after it has dried, and as you guys could see, I've taped it off again, and we're going to mix our top coat, which is a clear coat. I do have a bonnet on because I have red hair and I don't want my hair to fall in the epoxy and turn red and just mess up all the hard work that I did. Okay, so the container is dry, so there was no mixing of clear white with white. It's completely dry. The epoxy that was in there had hardened, so I was able to just use it to make my clear top coat. All right, the top coat, I personally feel like it is needed. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but in my opinion, this is a food grade epoxy, and I feel as though once I add colors in there, it takes away the food grade aspect of it. So that's why I go over it with just a clear coat that is not tinted with anything. Okay, it's just a clear coat by itself. All right, and make sure if you're going to use the same container, make sure it is completely dry and there's no bits of white and whatever that will blend into it. The container was completely dry, like I said, before I mixed it, and I mixed the same amount, 32 ounces of clear epoxy to add my clear top coat. So the white was 32 ounces that we tinted with the white enamel paint, and then the clear top coat is 32 ounces. Now, if you look closely, I'm using the heat gun over the clear, and you're gonna see like little fizzies on top of the countertop. That's all the little microscopic bubbles popping. Look at that. You see them? You can't really see them if you're not using a heat gun or something with heat. I've seen other people use flamethrowers to do their countertops. I'm not doing that. The heat gun is all I need. That works for me, and it does a really good job. I'll link all the supplies that I use down below, including the epoxy that I use down below. Okay, for cure time for your top coat, it's 24 hours. I waited 24 hours for the white base with the veins, and I waited 24 hours for the top coat. And the only reason, again, is because I am pregnant. If I wasn't pregnant, this all would have been done in one day, and I'm pacing myself. And again, please, 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 if you're going to do this, use the white clear alcohol with a little bit of Dawn dish soap in a spray bottle. Do not use high acid cleaning solutions, cleaning products, especially those that have colors in them. You will yellow your countertop and ruin all the work that you did. All right. I hope this video was easy to follow. I hope it gave you some encouragement, and I hope to see you in my next video. Love you guys. Bye.